Howling winds blew her long hair into her face, compromising her vision. She thrust her hand in one of the many pockets of her coat and retrieved a piece of twine. Twine that had once been used to wrap a bundle containing bread that had not been warm but sweet, and that she had long since eaten. She wove the string through her fingers so as not to lose it, then used both her hands to attempt to tame the wildly whipping tendrils. The twine was rough, and she knew that removing it later would be no easy task. But now she could see, and that was what was important. Her hair had not been a hazard when kept stowed under her warm hat, but the wind had stolen that, as well as her own body heat. She no longer had the strength to shiver, and her feet felt heavy as lead.
A few more steps.
It was the same lie she had been repeating, for what seemed like forever. She dragged her feet, making little progress. Even with her flowing locks bound, she again could not see. The snow aided by the wind fell at such a furious pace that they stuck to her eyelashes faster than she could bat them away.
Step, step, step.
Her foot caught and she tumbled to the forest floor. So deep she sunk into the powder, she tried to push herself to stand, only to sink under. Rolling onto her back, she attempted to shout for help, but nothing came from her lips but a gasp. The cold seeped through her heavy coat, her boots, and her being. Was this truly how her life would end? White faded to black, as did her consciousness. As she slowly came to, she felt not the cold and dampness of snow, but the warmth and comfort of soft blankets. She did not hear the harshness of the wind, but the wistful crackle of a fireplace. Turning her head, she took in the coziness of the cabin. She now dwelled inside. Quietly, a voice whispered from the next room.
Still she sleeps. She will wake in her own time.
Taking a deep breath, she inhaled the aroma of spices and sweets. What was this place? The purr of a cat was heard.
I said no.
Though the voice had been quite clear with his words, his orders were followed by the scampering of tiny feet and flying leap. A concentrated thud landed on the blankets near her chest, and bright green eyes stared at her in curiosity.
Whiskers, you rascal. Look what you've done.
The voice belonged to a man aged very close to her own years. He knelt at the bedside with a look of concern.
How are you feeling?
She attempted to sit up, but quickly slumped down. The cat lightly pawed at her arm.
Whiskers, those tiny paws are no use to the young lady. May I be of assistance?
He held out his palms, asking permission. She weakly nodded. He carefully slid and arranged pillows underneath her back, shoulders, and head to prop her up. All the while being cautious of keeping the blankets tucked tightly around her.
Your color has improved. Conditions were awful for walking, and so far from any village. The storm, like yourself, descended from nowhere. A surprise. I'm sorry. Where are my manners? Would you like drink? Food?
Where am I?
My home. Beyond the trees.
How did you find me?
I happened upon two curious shoes, poking out of a snowbank. Shoes I was surprised to see were attached to a nearly frozen body.
Why were you playing in the snow?
I asked you first.
She shook her head.
What is your name?
She shook her head again.
You do not want to say. All right. But I must address you in some way.
He thought a moment.
Crystal.
What did you say?
Crystal like snowflake. Crystal in snow, you were.
Have we met before?
Do I look familiar?
No, I would remember you.
A shiver ran through her.
A warm drink is what you need. Tea is ready.
He stood, and the cat dutifully followed him to the kitchen. She moved to put a hand through what she knew would be a matted, tangled mess of hair, but she found it to be smooth and soft. Her mind began spinning, and she peeked under the blankets to see her layers of outerwear had been removed, yet she still wore her underclothes.
Here we are. It's quite hot, so perhaps you'd like to warm up your hands to start.
She straightened herself, and readied her hands to take possession of the steaming mug. He placed a thick book on her lap, and set the cup atop.
Careful.
He warned her as she enveloped her hands around the mug, and he relinquished his grip on the handle. She gasped, and he took hold of the handle again. He moved the book and mug to the bedside table, and took both her hands in his. Though this heat was not as intense, it again made her shiver.
Poor Crystal.
He slowly rubbed and massaged her hands. The aching of her joints began to alleviate at his touch.
Perhaps the aroma of tea will bring you comfort.
She drew in a slow breath.
Licorice and mint.
Yes, exactly.
That is my favorite.
She murmured as her eyes slid shut.
Crystal. Crystal?
She gasped awake and felt muscles tightening around her.
It's all right. I've got you.
She saw bright flames and cringed.
You're all right. I brought you closer to the heat.
She looked up to see the man cradling her in his arms.
My apologies, but I cannot allow you to freeze again.
He rubbed his hands up and down her arms underneath the blanket that covered them both.
Once your shiver stop, it's back to bed.
She trembled and he held her closer.
Think of something else.
I could name you.
Yes, good. I named you, you name me.
Nick.
Nick?
Because you saved me in the nick of time.
He smiled and rubbed her back. She relaxed into his arms and looked up at the ceiling.
Beautiful.
He looked at her and then followed her eyeline.
Beams of ceiling?
She nodded.
A lot of work. I questioned my sanity at such an undertaking.
You carved them?
Yes, unbuilt this entire structure, if it's not too boastful to say so.
She coughed.
Dear. Sweet crystal, have some tea.
He sat her up and offered the mug. He held the drink to her lips, and she tasted a sampling.
Okay.
She nodded in approval.
Your favorite.
She smiled and took another sip.
Plenty more where that came from.
Where do you come from?
I will answer questions when you do.
She took a long sip, considering.
I ran away.
What are you running from?
She shook her head, distressed.
Perhaps I can help.
You've already saved me.
Only one more question. More tea for you.
I'm done for now.
He set down the mug and adjusted her in his arms.
Why were you out in the storm?
I was collecting firewood. Snow fell so quickly, I could not see my axe. Very dangerous. I decided to bring the entire tree home.
He pointed towards the door, where a magnificent spruce stood at attention.
Pretty.
Yes.
He moved the hair that had fallen around her face, so he could see her better.
Did you fix my hair? When I was asleep?
Maybe.
How did you get it so smooth and unknotted?
Patience. And my trusty hairbrush. Bora Brisles work wonders.
She blinked and ran a hand through her hair.
My comb never did a job this well. Do you live here alone?
With exception of Whiskers, yes.
The cat slept contentedly on the rug.
She was very intrigued. The new lap to occupy.
Her stomach growled and her cheeks blushed. He laughed at the sound and sight.
Hungry girl. Come.
He stood, lifting her with him.
You rest yourself while I prepare a feast.
Please don't trouble yourself.
It's not trouble. I'm quite hungry myself.
He placed her on the bed and tucked the blankets around her.
Once things are organized, warm clothes will be yours.
He gave a gentle smile and set off for the kitchen.